And this is a reading of the first new material since chapter 5 that has been posted on Wattpad of Survive the Atlantis Grail. And I'm going to, just to catch you up, I will read the last paragraph of chapter 5 from Wattpad, so it'll get you in the flow. Actually, the last two paragraphs. So you're saying that when I keyed the Grail, it somehow affected this disc at a distance? I say with amazement. Yes. Asen watches me with a grave look of wonder. At the Farikon's request, my father attempted just now to rekey it remotely via the comm device and deactivate it with his logos voice. But something went wrong. In short, he was unsuccessful. That's why we must comply with his summons tomorrow. Because whatever you did to key the Grail and the disc to you, and to somehow activate the whole thing, has caused an anomaly and some kind of cascading reaction. At this point, you might be the only person who can turn it off. Chapter 6. Ding! I stare in stunned silence, forgetting to breathe for a moment, unable to form words, while my mind clamors with the implications, all possible implications of what this could mean. Cass, what's going on? What did you just say? The Grail, the raw disc, are parts of an ancient ark ship? Zelio asks meanwhile. You mean... But Asen again raises his hand, silencing him the same way he did a few minutes ago, while continuing to look at me with his focused gaze. Gwen, I'm so intensely sorry this is happening. Wait, what? What's happening? What ark ship? Erita steps up and whispers to Oala, who only shakes her head and continues to stare at us with very wide eyes and her full attention. Kerovat is right next to her, listening seriously. Truth is, my father wanted you to come immediately. Right now. Not tomorrow. Now, Asen continues. But I refused him with a hard no. I told him you were too tired and drained from the games and would be useless tonight, unable to summon the energy needed to focus your voice on such a major task. It's logical, and it's the truth. So it convinced him. But you need to know that my father is in a severe state of upset. He's panicking, Gwen. The only reason he didn't send his enforcers here to bring you to him regardless is because I made sure he understands your condition. Oh my God, I whispered, finding my voice at last. I'm trembling in a combination of fury and terror. He would do that? No, what am I saying? Of course he would do. So he wants to force me to do this, whatever it is? When he's in a rage, my father becomes even more unpredictable and rarely thinks clearly. Instead, he lashes out. But this is such a uniquely terrible circumstance, and he needs you to be well recovered. Asen stops, taking in a shuddering breath and releasing. As of now, you have time to rest until morning, but not longer. It's a reprieve. We're expected in the palace at 7th hour, after which I believe we will likely head back to the stadium so that you can be in closest proximity to the Grail. This is unbelievable, I mutter, as my anger battles with exhaustion. What am I supposed to do? I don't know anything. What other things you will be asked to try tomorrow, you need to rest right now, Asen replies softly, then looks around at the people in the room. This gathering is over. The things you heard I will explain to you in good time. Very soon, I promise, but I ask you to keep this among ourselves for now. Tell nothing to anyone else. Understood? Oala speaks up at once. Of course, Cass, understood perfectly, even if we don't actually understand or have the details. Discretion and silence, Kerovat adds, putting his hand lightly on Asen's shoulder. You have my promise. Honor of the Daimon, Zelio nods. No questions for now, we'll speak later. I am confused and scared enough to crap my pants, Erika says loudly, but honor of the Daimon. Asen nods to his fellow Asta Daimon, then turns to the Earthies in the room, my siblings and friends. And all of you, I understand you're probably even more confused, but please be discreet with what little you've heard here. And now, Gwen urgently needs to rest. Okay, Laronda replies in an unusually meek voice. She glances back and forth from Asen to me. We should go. Yes, of course, Gracie echoes her nervously from a few feet away, standing near Gordy and the seated Blaine, whose chair is next to a serving table. Looks like Gracie's filling another plate with food, possibly intended for me. and has only paused her task because of the intense nature of our discussion. Gordy just nods at Asen in reply and furrows his brows. Understood, Blaine says with utter simplicity from his spot in the chair. Time to go. And then he starts to rise, propping himself against his hoverboard. Yes, definitely time for us to head out for the night, Don concludes calmly. Keeping my mouth shut, no problem. Like the rest of you, I have no idea what is happening, but it's not my place to speak, so good luck on whatever it is you must do tomorrow, Gwen. Chiyoko nods at me with her anxious face. Thanks, I whisper. Thank you, Asen says to the room in general as everyone begins to leave. Apologies for cutting our evening short. The mood is quiet and sober, and people come up to me one more time to wish me rest and a good night. A few hugs, a few pats on the shoulder and back, many intense glances, and they're gone. Asmik pushes a visibly confused Manala gently out the door with a final caring look and nod in my direction. Only my sister and brother remain. Gracie still holding my plate of food, and Gordy frozen with indecision like a tree that's taken root. G2, here's some more for you to eat, all right? I'll just put it here. Gracie hurries towards me and sets the plate on the sofa next to me. Right, we'll see you tomorrow, Gordy mumbles as Gracie nudges him. I ignore the plate and stand up. Silently, I put my arms around my sister and pat my brother on his shoulder. I'm once again numb, this time because my body and mind are shutting off, unable to deal with any of this. Will you be okay to make it to bed? Do you need me to help you upstairs? Gracie tries again as we come apart. But this time Asen just shakes his head at her and Gracie nods hurriedly. Get some sleep. We'll be here if you need us at any time in the middle of the night. And Gracie and Gordy slink out of the room, leaving me alone with Asen. Asen watches me with a raw expression as I stand there. For one brief moment, he allows his guard down, and his eyes reflect the strain of feverish exhaustion. As for me, frankly, I am not sure how I still remain upright. And even as I think about it, I sway slightly. At once he steps in and takes hold of me. Suddenly I'm swept up in his arms, lifted easily, and he's carrying me as I lie against his chest, head lolling forward, nestled against his throat. Soft, pale strands of his golden hair lightly brush against my face. His warm breath flows against my cheeks, and my head starts to spin with infinite weariness. Screw the Grail and the raw disc. I slide my hands around Asen's strong neck as we exit the room, and I am carried up the stairs and into my own bedchamber. I'm not entirely sure what happens in the next few minutes. And yes, I've ceased caring completely, and my well of self has run dry. The world has narrowed. All I know is my beloved, Imamrevu Asen, is lying in my bed beside me, cradling me and whispering, Sleep, Gwen, sleep. Nothing matters. I'm here. I'm with you. His overwhelming warmth, his sweetly mesmerizing low voice, and his words are the last thing I remember before the darkness takes me. I am with you. When I come awake with a start out of the deepest sleep in quite some time, it is early dawn and the first day of green ghost moon. Yesterday was the longest day of my life. Don't think, just don't think. The general awareness of it immediately bludgeons me, but I don't allow any of the terrible details into the foreground of my conscious mind, at least not yet. Don't look back. Instead, I intentionally focus on the moment, my body, it's sore and aching all over, and my surroundings, forcing the elements of the here and now to predominate. Do not attempt to remember. The room is mostly dark, with only a faint glimmering of twilight seeping in somehow from beyond the drawn curtains. I stir underneath the soft coverlet, feeling a comfortable weight settled against my midriff from above the bedding. I glance to my side, only to see with a pleasant jolt of surprise that Asen is sleeping next to me. He's lying on top of the covers on his side, facing me. His head rests inches away from mine on the same pillow. Tousled strands of long golden hair scattered around us. And although our bodies are not otherwise touching, separated by the thickness of the coverlet, one of his arms is extended, lying over my abdomen just above the waist in a possessive but relaxed hold. I hear his deep breathing, not quite snoring but softly audible, and feel the wash of air against my nose and cheeks. Instantly it sent sweet currents of arousal and pleasure throughout me, and my lips curve into a smile. Asen, he stayed in bed with me all night. I realized it with a kind of wonder and turned my head to better observe him in the faint light. That's when I noticed that he's still wearing the same clothes from the night before. My poor Asen. So he managed to get my shoes off and covered me, but never made it to his own bed. How exhausted he must have been. Probably fell asleep right after tucking me in. It occurs to me this is the first time he didn't leave in the middle of the night to return to his own room. Furthermore, he's not even up yet and is still blissfully asleep. Another first. Just as I think it, in that moment Asen stirs, inhaling a deep breath that turns into a light snore. He grunts in relaxation and then barely opens his eyes. Nefero eos, I whisper, smiling at him, with my face so close to his that it's within kissing distance. Gwen, he mumbles in a thick, sleepy voice, blinking. And then his eyes snap wide open in alarm. Ah, bashtut, what time is it? He cusses softly and starts to rise. His arm tightens against my waist, hand sliding forward and unconsciously caressing me. Then he blinks, pausing momentarily in confusion. I don't know, I say, but I think it's still very early. He checks his wrist-comm device. Just after 5th hour of Ra, he says in a voice that's now fully awake. We have time, but we can't be late for this. So what if we're late? I say with a yawn. Let your father wait. Remember, it's not about him, Asen says seriously. It's the accursed Grail and Ra disk, and everything that goes with it, the entire Ark ship, its connection to the ancient alien threat, the components of the resonance chamber, and whatever else must be deactivated as soon as possible. We need to hurry. Okay. I run my fingers against his jawline and feel his prickly morning stubble. But only because you say so, not because of your father. In reply, he leans in closer and his face hovers above mine as he watches me. How do you feel? He asks with concern, resting his palm against my forehead, fingers smoothing black filaments of my hair, thumb caressing my skin. Better, I say with a faint smile, looking up at him. I've slept like the dead. I think we both did, and I'm so glad you're here. The next instant, his face disappears from view, and suddenly I feel his mouth pressing hard against my throat, directly at the fluttering pulse point at the base of my neck. A lava-hot tidal wave of sensual awareness overcomes me, coming out of nowhere. My eyelids flutter and I lie back, dissolving into the unexpected wild sensation of the pulse kiss, the sensation of him, while his lips continue to move against my skin even as his sharp stubble grazes me, causing a strange searing mixture of sweet pain. Somehow he must realize it because he pulls back, saying, "Oh, Imambrevo, sorry, I know I need a shave and a shower." I tremble lightly as a flood of feelings continues to course throughout me. Yes, you too, I whisper. But I don't care, because when you kiss me, it makes me a little crazy and kind of happy, drunk, and... He chuckles, watching me trail off into silly mumbling, then silence. I take a deep breath. All right, enough of the good stuff. Time to get up and face the music. And with a groan, both of us do. Half an hour later, we're both showered in our respective bathrooms, dressed in a slightly less casual clothing better suited for the imperial palace, and he's clean-shaven. Asen calls the kitchen for Eos bread service for 2. I'm assuming my siblings and some of my friends are staying here in the estate, but no one else is up yet, so it's just us. Yes, we're in a hurry, but we're not going anywhere until you eat, he tells me, as we sit down for a quick meal in a small room downstairs, which has another beautiful view of the hillside and city skyline. The sky outside is barely the color of slate as the dawn slowly brightens. The dense tapestry of stars is still visible, and the artificial city lights still on, blinking twinkling dots in a morass of dusk above and below. Some of them are moving rapidly above the city in air traffic lanes, which tells me they're the lights of hover cars and other urban transports. It's the first day of the new month and a new work week, and Poseidon is coming awake. After all, the games are over, even though they were halted inconclusively. Stop. No. Don't think. At once, I forcibly distract myself with a barrage of random factual junk. Today's Green Ghost Moon 1. It's Red Day, the first day of the week, the Atlantean equivalent of Monday. How does it go? Red Day, Blue Day, Green Day, Yellow Day, and then comes Ghost Day. The day off that only comes twice a month or every 2 weeks. Okay, now I'm rambling. Good. Just don't think of yesterday. In the warm interior illumination from the wall sconces that fills our cozy nook, I observe my handsome bridegroom. He is dressed in a crisp dark blue shirt and black trousers beneath a light jacket, his shining mane of hair gathered into an ordered segmented tail. The hollows and lean angles of his face still show chronic exhaustion, but he looks more refreshed and alert after a restful sleep, for once. He in turn stares at me and seems to find my perfectly fitting tailored top and flowing dress pants, both in shades of lavender and violet. Very interesting. Eventually, he tears himself away from the sight of me and points to the appetizing spread before us. Yes, my imperial lord, I promise to consume food, I reply mockingly, picking up a cup of steaming hot livicao, the delightful drink with the aroma of pastry shop, and mimicking an earth-style toast gesture in his direction. And you need to eat too, because I know you've not eaten properly for a month. No excuses, mister. Don't make me force-feed you this big, juicy, swirly, fruity thing, whatever this is. It's a Medoi fruit-filled Eros pie. He laughs at me, then takes a deep swallow of his own drink, picks up an eating utensil, and digs in. A few moments later, after our plates are mostly cleared and we're waiting for refills of fresh livicao that's brewing in a carafe nearby, we finally permit ourselves the uncomfortable talk. Gwen, Ambrevo, I know you're making a brave effort right now, despite being terribly exhausted and very vulnerable after all that happened, he says. But before we go to see my father, I must tell you some hard truths I learned from Nephir about the Earth mission, to prepare you for the unpleasant meeting. I nod. Another few minutes will not make us late? All right. Asen takes a deep breath. You know about the single arc ship in orbit around Earth. Let me tell you the real reason it's there. Ugh. At once I pay very close attention. When we originally departed from Earth, this was the mission plan given to Fleet High Command, consisting of the IF commander and the 4 command pilots, including myself, and also shared with the general IEC assembly membership and the foreign heads of state who contributed mission resources. The semi-clandestine version. Select and rescue 10 million healthy, strong, endurance-capable, and variously talented young humans of the optimum age to survive the jump, plus specific Earth resources, and bring them to Atlantis. Meanwhile, leave 1 secret ship behind for special contingencies and as a communication link with Earth to observe and record what happens during the asteroid strike without interfering. Okay. The whole effort was promoted as a humanitarian rescue of a species from the same ancient alien threat and their extinction-level asteroid. The noble reason given was to preserve and reinvigorate humanity's gene pool by combining 2 long-separated human branches. And the practical reason was to add human resources to our military and enrich our static global population. Turns out this rescue was only half of our mission. The other half was the arc ship itself. It was left in orbit, not to observe, but to actively guide the asteroid to Earth and make sure it struck as my father intended. The asteroid was equipped with a hollow interior and retrofitted with a small resonance chamber and remote guidance system for my father's personal use. All of it so well disguised and so far below the asteroid surface that none of the Earth probes will ever find it. Even our own fleet sensors would easily miss it unless we knew where to look. Oh. I make a small sound. Gears turn in my mind and I interrupt wildly. If it has a guidance system, then it can be diverted away from Earth. Your father can simply change its course. Yes, Asen says, but he needs to be convinced to do so. And right now, I'm not sure how to convince my father about anything or what leverage to use without making things worse. In the course of my hard questioning, Nephir only told me what he knows about the Imperator's secret plan within a plan, which is quite a lot but not everything that lurks inside my father's dark mind. And now I'm beginning to suspect there's even more to it. So this whole mission must have some other hidden reasoning behind it, I ask. Some intricate imperial or even personal agenda? I believe so. And that's the missing part we still don't have. We don't know why my father wants the asteroid to strike Earth, especially now that the public mission objective has been achieved and the Earth refugees are safely here in Atlantis. At this point, it seems to serve no purpose, not even as a bargaining tool. Why destroy Earth? The only thing that comes to mind is that it's somehow related to the alien threat to us all. Well, we can ask him right now when we see him, I say, feeling my pulse quicken again and its rhythm echoing hard in my temples. In fact, I have all kinds of things to ask. Asa nods, watching me seriously. Gwen, promise me you'll be very careful when you talk to him. Please think things through before saying anything volatile. Oh, believe me, I will. Too much is at stake. Exactly. He pauses, takes a deep breath. To continue, Nefer McKay was in charge of this half of the mission as known only to my father and a handful of the ISC members, all Imperial loyalists. At the same time, Nefer was also serving as the ACA liaison with the Earth governments, and he was supposed to make excessive material promises to them in secret on behalf of Imperial Atlantida, promises that my father never intended to honor. Now, those of us in Fleet High Command knew about that part, about exaggerated promises, because it was relevant to the entire mission. These promises would keep the Earth United Nations docile and cooperative while we carried out our plan, since they expected to be rescued by us at the last minute before the asteroid hit. In fact, the ACA promised them there will be at least one ARC ship at their disposal. So yes, the top Earth officials and leaders such as the American President Donahue, King William of England and British Prime Minister Cornwall, Chinese President Li Ka-wang, United Hindustan President Ghatak, and Russian President Zabrodov knew about the cloaked ship remaining in orbit, even while the rest of Earth and our own Atlantean fleet did not. Oh my God. Asen pauses to drink from his cup of Vikao. As you already know, I was in charge of creating the hologram ARC ship illusion to fill the empty slot in the fleet formation within the quantum stream for our return trip. Yes, I remember our talk after the second QS race, I say. That's when you first mentioned them, though indirectly. The ancient aliens. He nods. Back then, I assumed the secrecy was for everyone's safety, both for the crew staying behind on board AS-1999 and the rest of our fleet personnel, and the poor doomed residents of Earth who really didn't need to be given false hopes of last-minute rescue. Instead, my actions were directly contributing to the mission that would have Earth destroyed. I'm so damn sorry, Gwen. I sigh, watching his tortured expression as he barely meets my eyes in that moment. But before he can continue, Asen's wrist calm emits a tone. He checks it and says, "It's my father. He wants to know if we're coming now." I sigh again, this time exhaling a furious breath as I watch Asen key something back, his fingers tapping lightly on the micro device. When he looks up, he says, "Let's head out. We can continue talking along the way." Minutes later, flanked by the usual retinue of guards, we exit the estate past a few curious but respectful servants. Outside, the dawn has brightened, and we get in the hover cars and lift off into the sky. I usually have no problem flying in large, reasonably safe vehicles such as this one, but this morning, for some reason, my gut feels like it's falling out from under me, and then my head reels with vertigo, which dissipates quickly enough, but instead a new terror grips my intestines. My mother is dead. When the Imperator brings up this fact, as he cruelly might, I must keep from bawling. I must not cry, not blink, or respond in any way that might show weakness. I must be a rock before him. That's the end of chapter 6. But I'm going to keep going. Get a little sip here. Actually, let's see what time is it.
Ding.
What time is it? Just to get
10:37.
Okay, that's
You've got 24 minutes
That's, okay, good. That's good.
on, so
Yeah,
you're
okay,
good.
chapter 7. Okay, it's gonna get worse. I focus on my breath to keep it regular, trying not to hyperventilate. Meanwhile, I silently observe Asen as he keeps us in the major air traffic lane. with the guard vehicles on both sides and behind us. The golden roofs of the Imperial Palace complex soon come into view, contrasting with metallic fire against the mauve and ebony grandeur of massive structures and splotches of manicured greenery of the park and gardens below. We come down on the private airfield. Indeed, my first memory of being on Atlantis is in this very same spot, where I first landed directly from orbit in that fateful shuttle more than 2 months ago. A distant memory now, with all the things that have happened in the interim. It feels like a lifetime. Gwen, Asen glances at me. Are you okay? No, I'm not, I say in a numb voice. But I will be once we're in your imperial father's presence. He takes one hand off the steering panel surface momentarily and places it over mine, squeezing it. His touch is strong and warm, and it gives me a jolt of reassurance. I love you, I whisper in reply. His solemn expression melts. We get out of the hover car and start walking along the mauve cobblestone-like surface of the airfield toward the park entrance and the garden paths that lead to the main building of the Imperial Palace. At this early time, except for the uniformed palace staff and gardeners, few people are about. The ones who walk past us bow to pay their respects before the Imperial Crown Prince and his guards, and then they see me. Without hesitation, they bow before me also, deeply, with the same level of reverence as they show Cassiope. Even knowing enough to expect it, I am once again stunned. But Asen gently guides me onward, giving me no time to show confusion in front of these courtiers and servants. We enter the grand marble interior front hall, which branches off into myriad palatial chambers, corridors, and connecting passages. We take the swift elevators to the top floor, and then emerge in the lobby of mauve and cream marble, which serves as the entry hall before the imperial quarters, past a number of other elevators along all walls. At the massive double doorway entrance, a row of imperial guards equipped with gold staffs salute the imperial crown prince and myself, and we are immediately admitted within. Asen's personal guards must stay behind at this point, due to imperial security protocol. So Asen and I enter alone. The antechamber of the imperial quarters is a grand hall with a vaulted ceiling and colonnades along the gilded walls, with an informal reception room throne and other lesser chairs along the back wall, next to which are more doors leading deeper into the private areas of the quarters. All the seats are vacant. The last time I was here in this very room was that fateful first morning when we had Eo's bread with the Imperator up on the roof pavilion, and I met the whole family, my future in-laws. And now, the same high-ranking servant approaches us with a hurried bow and points to one of the doors. He has an alarmed expression, and before Asen can ask anything, he says, "Please, this way, my imperial lord and lady. You are expected immediately. Our imperial sovereign, the Archeon Imperator, is in his red office, and he will receive you there." Asen nods, and we enter a short, ornate corridor with a distant arched ceiling. Asen walks past several other interior doors toward a room in the back, and I follow him with quick steps in order to keep up. The door is open, and a warm glow of sconce lights greets us as we find ourselves inside a relatively small but opulent chamber, decorated in deep, earthy shades of river red clay, mauve, rust, carnelian, and fine gold trim. It's interesting, but there are no windows here, only four walls draped with ancient tapestries, ornamental curtains with valances, wooden carved plaques depicting ancient stylized reliefs, and occasional modern digital landscape photographs. A large desk stands near one wall and a tall chair, while three more chairs are spread across the room. The three monitor screens of different sizes rise off to the side via intricate and somehow antique-looking spiral-jointed neck arms suspended over the desk at eye level. They're reminiscent of exotic metal blossoms or maybe strange avian wings. The Imperator himself stands behind the desk, leaning forward slightly with his two hands resting on the desktop, fingers drumming against the high-gloss polished surface. His long Cassiope blonde hair hangs loosely down his shoulders in a rather unkempt fashion, and his lean, ageless face is fixed in a disturbing expression. He is wearing a deep green jacket over a simple pale shirt and black trousers, possibly the most casual I've seen him to date. I catch a glimpse of the Imperator's very dark blue eyes, and they appear wide and terrible as he looks at me in that initial moment of recognition. You! Both of you! At last! The Imperator explains, striking one hand violently against the desk surface and straightening. My Imperial father. Asen greets him coldly, but is immediately interrupted. How do you feel now, girl? Romutat Cassiope turns directly to me, stepping past his son. Sufficiently recovered from your many ordeals and that performance of yours, enough to get to work? Well? Yes, I say in a frigid voice, looking up unflinchingly at his glaring face, and I don't add, my sovereign lord. Well then, let's begin. And just as abruptly the Imperator pushes past us back to the desk and nearly rips one monitor screen from its elegant curving neck arm, dragging it toward him, turning it so it faces us. I see a close-up live streaming view of the Atlantis Grail Stadium, bright with morning light, from the vantage point of someone standing right in the arena at the base of the Grail. The stadium appears empty of people, with not even the cleanup staff around. Only silence, gusts of wind, and birdsong, punctuated with occasional distant swells of surrounding city traffic. Everything's untouched. The variously broken and displaced tiers and rows of seats, leaning statues, walkways, and uprooted flooring on the ground show the same level of structural damage in the arena as had been there yesterday. It's a strangely sad, abandoned, grand expanse. The Grail itself is jutting out of the broken ground at a slight angle, just as I last recall it, and immediately a sickening feeling comes over me as I start to remember and relive everything. No, stop. I struggle to focus on the present, clear my mind. That's when, during a particular moment of lull in the living silence, I hear the deep, bone-rattling hum. There, it is. Can you hear it? The Imperator says, lifting one finger up, and then he taps the display surface and addresses the screen. Approach closer, center on target, enhance sound. Whoever or whatever is there causes the live camera device on that end to rotate smoothly and point at the golden gleaming objects, so that now it's looming in view, overshadowing all else. Then the camera view starts sailing forward, bringing itself closer yet, so that it's only a few feet away, then a few inches from the golden stem portion of the Grail. It occurs to me, there is no person holding up a device. It's some kind of a hovering robotic drone. Could it be a nano camera? Meanwhile, the deep humming sound grows in volume, and now there's an added buzz from vibration because the device makes physical contact with the Grail surface. Before my bride does anything, Asen says coldly, my Imperial father must explain what is happening. Why is the raw disk in New Deshret affected by whatever is happening with the Grail in Imperial Atlantida? Romutat glances at his son. I've been harboring a theory, father, Asen continues. My theory is that the Atlantis Grail monument is not a monument at all, but the uppermost section of a very ancient, very deeply buried ark ship that lies sprawling far underneath the Stadion, which marks the landing site of our first colony right here in downtown Poseidon. And the raw disk carved in the face of Dubutat Mountain is also not a carving at all, but a portion of that same old ship. And if you put the two together, the raw disk fits precisely over the top of the Grail, and it becomes a great golden sphere, a resonance chamber. For a moment, the Imperator stares at his son like a basilisk, and then he nods. Yes, clever boy, you figured it out. Asen inhales deeply. So then, the Imperator makes a harsh scoffing sound. So then nothing. This information is not yours to have, not yet. It's a fragment of the vast set of hidden knowledge revealed to the new Imperator only after he ascends the throne of Imperial Atlantida. Unfortunately, because of your bride's meddling, disastrous actions, you get to find out sooner than you should. Or maybe it's fortune, not misfortune. Feel free to call it either. And the Imperator looks from Asen to me, while his near black eyes appear wild. You must be so full of questions now, just itching to know. Are you so eager? How much of this whole structure is the ancient ark ship? How deep does it go? I've been inside it, haven't I? Asen continues, ignoring the barbs. The first 5 underground stories, at least, the ones that house the research facilities, is that the original ship or later additions built around it? Ha! It's all the ship, idiot boy. At least 300 levels down. Some of them so far down that we've never been that deep. We cannot open them due to ground instability, for fear of implosion and collapse. We cannot risk damage to any of it, not ever. Okay, why? I say in a hard voice, speaking up for the first time. Romotat snaps to me. Because the ancient ship is a glorious, dangerous, sacred treasure of our past. It houses all technical and esoteric knowledge of our original civilization, so much of our history. There are so many answers there, but they are convoluted, partial, incomplete. We keep looking and finding more things to question, more unresolved puzzles, mysteries instead of solutions, enough to make you mad. Symbols and ciphers, imperfect fragments of arcane languages. It's an entire city down there. My mouth parts in wonder. Asen frowns. And you, Gwen Lark, the Imperator tells me. See what you've done to this antique? It's bad enough that you uprooted it physically, causing untold possible structural damage to the lower levels. But the worst part, you keyed it to yourself and you broke the master lock, the Imperial Oral Block. It's a safety lock to keep the ark ship suspended in its quantum resting state, all parts of it inert. And now, because of your brute force override, the ship is no longer inert. But how? What exactly did I do? I start to hyperventilate. What does it mean? It means that all components are now active regardless of their location on this planet, because they're all bound at the quantum level. And some of them are broadcasting far outward beyond our stars for anyone who's listening to hear. The Imperator's eyes widen, and there's a flicker of new darkness that I suddenly recognize as fear. At the thought of the Imperator himself being afraid, a cold wave washes over me. But just as swiftly he regains his heart control and continues. The pieces of the ship were physically separated by our ancestors for a reason, to minimize the possibility of this kind of unfortunate tampering, and only one Logos voice may set and maintain the master lock at a time. The Imperator of Atlantida holds that right throughout generations to control and maintain the ship in secret for everyone's protection. Romutat turns to Asen. Your turn would have come. You would have properly keyed it using the correct procedure learned from me at the initiation. No one would have suspected. But now, because of what was done by your senseless Earth bride. Senseless? I exclaim. How was I to know any of this? I sang in order to win the games. I thought it was going to be a harmless vocal demonstration. Speaking of sense, Father, what you described doesn't entirely make sense, Asen says with brutal sarcasm. Why did the Asians bother to separate the components if it's all bound together by one voice anyway? Why dump the top half of the resonance chamber in New Deshret? Why? Ah, the questions. Very likely to hide it in plain sight, disguise its true nature from nosy fools, and hope for the best? We don't know, the Imperator replies after a slight pause. There's a leashed fury in his voice. This is one of those unanswered questions. I was told by your grandfather the one Logos voice was responsible for the whole ship. That is all he knew. As to why New Deshret has the raw disk, maybe, Asen says, the components were isolated for political reasons as much as safety. Maybe the act of dismantling the great ark ship was a means of equalizing ancient power structures along the heirs of Cassiopeia, Heru, and other original great families. You can ask Areviktet Heru himself in half an hour, Romutat says. The Farikon is waiting for my call, and I am certain he would love to entertain your idiot questions. And then the Imperator returns his fierce attention to me. But first, you, girl, will need to sing again, this time carefully and using the correct sequence I'm about to teach you, to key the ship, after which I will sing to re-key it again and set the Imperial Oral Block. I bite my lip. Okay, show me what to do. The Imperator nods, and now his dark eyes bore into me with an intensity that makes my skin crawl. Listen carefully. And then he sings a strange keen command in a deep voice of power. He's using a major sequence of notes, starting with C, then E, then G. In this case, the C is a rather common choice of tonic starting note. However, he's singing overtones. In other words, the sound issuing out of his mouth and throat splinters into two different notes at the same time. One low fundamental note and the other high as a whistle, the overtone. Holy crap. Overtone singing, a bizarre type of harmonic singing or throat singing, was an uncommon skill back on Earth, from what little I can remember of it. Even now, I'm only superficially aware of its existence among some cultures, such as the people of Mongolia, Tibet, and a number of others. Mom had mentioned it to us at some point, but I didn't pay much attention since it was really hard and way beyond my budding vocal skills. You basically use your lips to shape the sound of the low note, move your tongue to change the resonance, and that's what affects the high note, I think. We all tried it as kids and were unsuccessful. And now I'm supposed to be able to sing this way with no training and only a few minutes notice when I'm not even sure if my own mom, the opera singer, could do it. Maybe if I could ask her how. Mom is dead. I can never ask her anything again. The strange realization punches me in the gut, and everything from yesterday that was just hovering in the background at the utmost edges of my awareness comes slamming back. She's dead, and he's responsible. He killed her. I clench my hands into fists, clench my mouth in a hard line, and I don't breathe. It's the only way I can keep myself from breaking down in front of the Imperator or throwing myself in fury at him. Meanwhile, Romutat stops singing the overtone keen command and watches me for any reaction. Apparently my unusual stillness and lack of expression has captured his attention. Does he think he stunned me with his demonstration? Slowly I release my breath, and then I say in a dead voice, I can't do that. I pause. The Imperator's eyes do not change, but his mouth starts to curl with disdain. But in that moment, Asen says in a hard voice, even if she could, she's not going to. Romutat Cassiope turns to his son, and I feel the terrible weight of his gaze leaving me, as though it's a physical burden lifting. What did you say? But Asen doesn't blink, doesn't avert his gaze. He merely watches his father with his own equally imposing basilisk stare. Several moments pass. What did you say to me, boy? The Imperator repeats, starting to move closer toward his son. She will do nothing, Asen replies calmly, because the Imperial Crown Prince will not permit his bride to give up her unique advantage for nothing in return. What? Compensation for her valuable services in the form of truth from you. The entire truth and a bargain that guarantees her permanent safety. Enough deception, my father. You will begin by admitting your role in orchestrating the asteroid disaster about to befall Earth. Admit what you have done and explain why. Wait, did Asen plan this in advance? My thoughts race wildly. There's a terrible pause. You dare take this tone with me? The Imperator speaks in a low, soft voice of a serpent. He's a dragon awakening. All at once, my heart starts to pound. But Asen's face is a mask of stone. He looks at his father, unflinching. Explain what is going on. Everything. Or she leaves with me, now. Romutat Cassiope takes another step towards his son, that they're facing each other. You dare bargain with me? Have you any idea what I can do to you, to her, and to everything and everyone that either of you hold dear? I have a very good idea, my father, Asen replies without blinking. Except, in this case, you are out of time. You admitted last night that she's your only option. If you try to force her, if you harm her or her family or friends, I guarantee you she will do nothing, and the ship will continue to broadcast. Remember, she cannot be compelled. Every moment you waste trying to threaten or break her, or me, the signal will travel farther, and they are sure to pick it up. They, our ancient alien enemy. Indeed, they have likely received the transmission already and are on their way here. Ha! Then we're already lost. Not necessarily. Cutting off the transmission now quickly might help to slow them down. Or not. Might as well proceed with our original plans. Have you gone mad, boy? And what would those plans be? No, I'm not mad, Father, but I'm willing to take this ridiculous exchange all the way. The Imperator glances at Asen with disbelief. No, but you are blatantly mad to defy me. Maybe it's the insanity caused by your so-called young love, or maybe it's all those sleepless days and nights spent at the games that have broken your mind. Or were you an AG runner? Tell me that's the case, and I will disregard your stupid words, forgive your outburst, and have my own doctors examine you and cleanse your system. Otherwise, if you continue in this mad course, are you willing to risk your bride? You will do nothing to her. Not now, not ever. And I've never taken AG runner in my life. But let's not go down this pointless sidetrack. It's just another twisted distraction coming from you, my father, as you wrap us in more deception and lies. The webs you choose to spin are intricate, and yet it's all unraveling now. Enough. Enough indeed. The world has turned upside down. My son dares defy me. Your son is Cassiope, and so is my imperial bride. She's under my protection, and now she's also Games champion, additionally protected by a very different, very public law. Romutat Cassiope pauses thinking, while his forehead twitches, and then a thin sneer comes to one corner of his mouth. You think you're so clever now. Well then, consider your imperial bride's health, her well-being, her very delicate state of sanity, if not her existence, which is indeed so inconveniently protected now by her new celebrity status and public opinion. You think she's untouchable, unbreakable now? Why don't we put this brave resolve of hers to the test, boy? Another hour of signal transmission will not make a difference. I'm willing to take the risk. And meanwhile, your bride's little sister and brother can be brought here together with my expert interrogators for some very painful persuasion techniques. No, I exclaim, while a tidal wave of lava-hot fury rises inside me. You touch my family and what? What will you do, poor little Gwen? Lash out at me with your untrained voice? Threaten to kill yourself, maybe? Self-harm is all you have left as a bargaining tool, and not even that. You will be restrained and muzzled as you watch them be cut alive. Not before I fry that damn ship right now, I exclaim, stepping to the side and turning to the monitor with the live feed of the Grail. Don't try to disconnect the computer link. I will sing before you can do it. Would you risk losing all the ancient, priceless orichalcum technology in one instant? What? The Imperator's jaw drops and he takes a step toward me. Meanwhile, Asen gives me an amazed look and starts moving forward also to insert himself between us. I will fry the ship and everything around us that has orichalcum content, I say, emphasizing every word. Call your guards, and I will fry this room before you have the chance to muzzle me. And I will stand between you and my bride to give her all the time she needs, Asen adds, stepping forward and blocking the way toward me as he stands before his father. She can do so much irreparable damage to your favorite red office and the entire Imperial suite floor, even if her Logos voice doesn't reach the Grail. What a shame it would be, Father. The Imperator stares at his son and then at me with a truly stunned expression. He throws one glance at the live monitor as if calculating the seconds needed to thwart me. There's another terrible pause. And then Romutat Cassiope slowly smiles. Well then, no need to interrogate your siblings, Gwenlark. Something else has come to my attention. Very unfortunate news about your mother. Would you like to hear? Margot Lark is dead. Apparently she died a few days ago while still on Earth. You will never see her again. My condolences on your tragic loss. Such a shame our medical staff never had a chance to treat her highly manageable disease. He watches me, still smiling, waiting for my reaction, for my breakdown. I gather myself with every ounce of strength. I know, I say with perfect calm. And then as the Imperator's smile fades, I add, I know how you killed her. End of chapter 7. Now, what time is it?
It is 11:02.
Okay, I can keep going. I know you won't be too. And we'll try to see how far. I'll try to, because it's good stuff, but if I stop, okay. All right. Okay, chapter 8. The Imperator looks at me like a demon, and then he looks at Aeson. But I continue in a very calm, outwardly dead voice that is yet somehow charged with power. I know everything. I know you're responsible for keeping my mother and the rest of my family from being rescued, denying her the medical treatment all these days when she could have been up on the Ark ship. I know you wanted to use her death against me. That's not going to happen now. I pause as the power inside me is rising. Vertigo and mind dissociation slams me so that for a fraction of an instant, I actually black out. And there's a buildup of impossible pressure from the inside. At last, it feels like there's no more room, so it just sits there right below the surface, balancing on the knife edge of my lips. So much power. It's prickling me, a sequence just at the tip of my tongue. All I need to unleash it is to speak another word. It occurs to me, I could kill him with one breath. One logos breath of power. No. Is that even possible? But regardless, for Mom's sake, just no. And so instead, I carefully exhale and inhale, keeping the balance of force churning inside me. I visualize it moving in a strange repeating figure 8, the shape of the symbol of infinity. And then I speak again using all that impossible intensity to focus the meaning of my words. I imbue my words with such sharp semantic clarity that it seems the imagery of what I say hangs in the air before us, fills the expanse of my mind, and spreads outward. This is not a compelling voice. This is something else. A voice of revelation, of awareness, imbued with insight. A voice of genuine, eye-opening conviction. A voice of reawakened sentience. A voice of reason. Your mission of destruction ends now. You will stop the asteroid, or you will change its trajectory and guide it on a different path away from Earth, divert it anywhere, elsewhere safely out of reach. Just a few degrees off. It is simple. Do it, and I will cooperate with you. I grow silent, and my resonant power words hang in the air. My hands are trembling, and the fine hairs on my skin stand up with goosebumps. The Imperator's expression goes from furious to thoughtful to almost slack. It's as if he's forgotten all mention of my mother, all his threats, and is distracted by some urgent and controvertible set of facts and logic that must be addressed now, this instant. Aeson stares at me and glances at his father. And then Romutat Cassiope tells me, still thoughtful and genuine, no, unfortunately, it cannot be done. Earth must suffer the asteroid impact. And then he adds tiredly, almost sadly, and with resignation, yes, I designed the Earth mission, every detail and component, carefully guided all the pieces and all the players for these past several years, and not even your earnest attempt at persuasion can change the cruel reality of what must happen. And interesting use of voice, by the way. I don't believe I've heard this variety, not compelling, but persuasive nevertheless. But why? Why can't you stop all this, I say, ignoring his aside? Because the asteroid needs to strike. At certain coordinates in your Atlantic Ocean, in the location of the original Atlantis continent, where it will detonate a very specific high-level quantum energy charge. What? Aeson frowns at his father, his lips parting in confusion. The Imperator sighs, still in the mellow and thoughtful mode. This information must not leave the room. Only a handful of individuals know this. He lifts one finger, pauses. The precisely calculated detonation will close and repair the ancient dimensional rift which brought the alien enemy to us so many eons ago. It will end our struggle once and for all. At last, no more fear, no more constant vigilance or patrolling deep space, no more running away and colonizing, no more pursuit from them. Humanity will live and continue to evolve and progress in peace on our own terms. I'm stunned. But no, I whisper, as all the gathered power and righteous fury inside me disperse like smoke. I understand your motivations now, some at least, but no, you cannot destroy Earth in the process. There must be another way, Asen says. Send localized explosive on a smaller scale to the coordinates, the kind that do not initiate an extinction level event planet-wide. There is no other way, the Imperator interrupts, his tone regaining his normal petulant edge that he uses in private with his son, as the effect of my strange, unnamed voice must be dissipating. We tried smaller scale local explosives and various energy discharges more than 12,000 Earth years ago. They were insufficient. According to old records, admittedly incomplete, our ancestors tried closing the rift in more ways than you can imagine. But we have better technology now, Asen says. We can plan and contain the detonations with greater precision. Containing energy on a quantum level is what we do. You think I don't know that, boy? Romutat snarls. What, you think that in all these years and centuries, no other smart scientific mind wrestled with this problem? This might be news to you, but part of the Earth mission was a series of discreet attempts to close the rift while we were back there during the qualification process. While you and the ACA engaged in talks and diplomacy with the Earth leaders, some of our specialists were working in secret on site under the guise of retrofitting the ancient Atlantis subterranean chamber network. We used our modern, better technology to no avail. We generated countless smaller quantum containment fields and bombarded the rift with energy at every imaginable level. The only things we did not try were the super megaton detonations on such a massive destruction scale that cannot be safely achieved at close planetary proximity to the target. In fact, the asteroid was going to be our last resort measure to generate such a detonation. And you didn't think to inform your son, an imperial heir, of any of this? Asen says in a bitter voice. The Imperator glances at him. Knowing your scruples, boy, it would have created unnecessary complications. My scruples? Romutat Cassiope makes a harsh sound. Yes, your inability to keep your conscience out of the bigger picture. When it comes to putting yourself in harm's way for others, you're easily a hero. But when it comes to morally gray, hard decisions, you're your mother's son. You're weak. You want the truth? You're not fit to be Imperator, the kind of leader necessary for dark times, times of true crisis such as these. Why do you think I'm doing all this, boy? I'm doing this for you. When I'm done with all of this ugly, dirty work, when the Earth mission is complete as planned, I leave you without an enemy to fight. I leave you a free Atlantida, unencumbered by ancient threats of destruction, so that you can be a true divine Imperator, a saint, if you will, ruling in a golden age, a perfect time of peace and justice and harmony, as you've always wanted your reign to be. Enough, Father. You don't know me as well as you think. Asen's features are composed, but his eyes are radiant with anger. I remind you again, I am Cassiope. I'm perfectly capable of making all the hard decisions that are necessary, but I will not commit atrocities. There are always other alternatives, and I will always strive to find them. If you consider that weakness, so be it. But if I survive long enough to become Imperator, I will not accept the burden of your Earth genocide on my conscience. So do not ever say you are doing this for me. Ungrateful whelp, the Imperator exclaims, stepping toward his son. I notice his fingers are twitching, hands starting to clench into fists. Would he hit his own son? I wonder in that terrible moment if the Imperator is guilty of actual physical abuse of his family in addition to the psychological kind. I am Cassiope, Asen replies without flinching, and a cold smile comes to his lips. There's a long moment of silence as the two men face off, both so different yet so terribly similar in their dangerous expressions. My thoughts are feverish as I watch and listen, afraid of what might come next. To be honest, I'm not sure if I'm more shocked by the awful new revelations or by the continued extent of the Imperator's blatant cruelty towards his own son and toward me. He is using his son as a moral excuse for all his horrifying actions and plans. And he's responsible for my mother's death. He just tried to use it against me. But the new revelations are taking precedence over emotional shock. And so as usual, my ideas start flying, and so does my big mouth. The rift, this dimensional rift, I say in a numb voice, interrupting the horrible moment of confrontation between father and son. How was it created in the first place? At the sound of my voice, the Imperator starts. The fierce tension is broken, and he abandons Aeson, almost in relief, and throws a hard look at me. You can thank our blessed fool ancestors for it. From what we know or assume, some kind of massive energy tampering went on, and it created a quantum instability which evolved into a potential energy hole. You mean a black hole? I say, putting one hand to my mouth. On Earth? Something like that, yes. Our ancestors shielded it, but still it leaked and fluctuated, and it allowed transdimensional movement, bringing all kinds of dangerous things here into our universe, things that don't belong. At once, I think of the Pegasi and Orion. Such as our alien enemy, Aeson concludes quietly in a voice still razor-edged with ice. Yes, and more. The Imperator retorts without looking at his son, and instead directs his attention to me. And all because the ancients had not done their due diligence before experimenting with early quantum technology. So they left you with an unstable, uncontainable, permanently evolving, real-time quantum anomaly at the location of what you now call the Bermuda Triangle. Yes, even your modern Gebby are aware of it, although you really know nothing. Not only is it a conduit for alien entities into our dimension, but it will continue to expand, decay quantum boundaries, leak matter and energy, and potentially rip apart the multidimensional space around it, including your Earth, unless we repair it once and for all. I'm sorry, but this is just so much, too much, all of it. It's so hard to believe. I shake my head unconsciously frowning with tension. Actually, it's really starting to sound like popular conspiracy theory and fake news nonsense, the kind that's perpetuated by gullible, malicious, or crazy people back on Earth. The Bermuda Triangle is a man-made black hole? What else? Are vampires and leprechauns involved too? The Imperator watches me with renewed derision. Modern-day conspiracy theories are nothing less than future myths and legends, Gwen Lark, he says. I thought your Gebby understood this when the fleet arrived on Earth, and you learned our true common history stemming out of ancient myth. But think what you like. I'm not particularly familiar with their current conspiracy myths, but rest assured everything has a basis in reality, no matter how corrupted the final interpretation is. Okay, but so your plan is to destroy Earth yourself to prevent Earth from being ripped apart in a black hole? What? That's crazy. No, but it is unfortunate. Earth is the past, and it is only one component of the grand equation, of which, again, you know nothing. The safety of Atlantis is my primary concern. Earth is so not the past for the 8 billion people who live there now, I exclaim. That's 8 times the population of Atlantis. And those 8 billion will die when the ancient enemy returns to finish what they started over 12,000 of your Earth years ago. Only this time they will come for both our planets. In the end, all 9 billion will die, and there will be no more humanity left. The Imperator grows silent, watching me with his draconian stare. I stand engulfed by the overwhelming ocean of information. Much of it is conflicting or somehow contradictory, jumbled with significant pieces still missing. And my thoughts are suddenly disoriented, swimming hopelessly against the tidal forces of a whirlpool, pulling me down, down, down. No. I find I'm shaking my head and I start to mutter, no, I can't, no. There must be some other way. The only way is to save this world, Gwenlark, the Imperator replies. You will begin by rekeying the ancient ship now. As soon as we reach an understanding, Father, Aeson says, folding his arms before him. An unbreakable bargain, sealed with the Imperial word. A guarantee of Gwen's safety, and the safety of everyone she cares about, family and friends. Come now. It's a simple solution to the most immediate problem. You want to silence the ship, and frankly, so do we. No one wants the alien enemy to find us. Let us all put all personal feeling aside and work together on this. The Imperator makes a strange short laugh. Very well, he says suddenly. You make a fine attempt to bargain like a proper Cassiopeia boy. Yes, fine, I'll give my word that your pretty little bride will remain safe, and so will her family and everyone else she wishes to keep safe, including animals, birds, and insects if she so desires. I glance back and forth at son and father. Aeson's mouth remains a straight and passive line. In that case, you honor my bride and me, but we must have your imperial word. Say it, father. I give my imperial word that your bride and all her human baggage will be unharmed. There you have it. The Imperator says in the same tone of strange disdain. Aeson nods. My bride and I are grateful and honored by your imperial word and promise of safety. But just to seal the deal, I'm going to make a unique promise of my own. If somehow this formal bargain is broken, if anything happens to Gwen or her loved ones, I will let the public know what actually happened at Isla Terra, what you did not do on the day that I died. What? The Imperator's face turns to stone and his jaw goes slack. But Aeson continues. As insurance, I've recorded and encrypted a very special data feed ready to be released to the media and all the social network feeds. It contains the truth of Isla Terra. If she dies, or if I die, or become incapacitated, it will automatically be activated and distributed virally, and the world will know everything. The Imperator will be dishonored. You, my father, will bear the stigma of a coward who did not perform his primary duty to his people, while his young son had to do it in his stead. Romuald Cassiopeia breaks into a flood of curses. He is visibly agitated, and for a moment I almost feel sorry for him. Oh my God, what happened to Isla Terra? As if reading my mind, Aeson turns to me and says, Gwen, I will tell you the sad story later tonight, all of it, but now my father knows precisely the extent to which this condition of your safety is never to be broken. You are hereby properly insured. He pauses to smile at me, and then turns to look directly in his father's eyes. Now I bargain like a proper Cassiopeia. In the next several moments, the Imperator calms down gradually and with difficulty, continuing to glare at both of us, but he no longer protests or makes sarcastic remarks. Periodically, he curses soundly again at Atlantis, and once even spits on the floor with fury, showing a decidedly undignified non-imperial side. We're not done, you and I. Oh, no. We'll continue this talk, he hisses at his son during one or more outbursts. Don't think for a moment that I've forgotten, son of mine. Aeson watches him impassively. After that one moment of triumph, his smile is gone, and the mask is back, a practiced illusion of patience and composure intended solely for his father. Yes, he says, I have no doubt we'll return to this ugly conversation, father of mine. At last the Imperator regains control. Very well, accursed whelp, and you, girl, listen carefully. You will sing a proper king sequence, as I was saying before being interrupted with all this idiocy. But how? I asked. I already said I can't sing like that, not with that kind of throat singing technique. The Imperator snorts. You don't have to, not like this, not in the way I demonstrated previously. I was simply testing you and you failed. You're not as skilled as I am. And it's a good thing. You don't have to be, or we'd be completely screwed, as you say in your Dan Gebby English. What? I frowned. What do you mean? Aeson shakes his head with renewed anger. He means the king is an ordinary command. He was only intimidating you with an unnecessary imperial show of advanced voice. Oh, I exclaim in relief, feeling absolute disgust at Aeson's father, for so many reasons now compounded. One thing he's right about, we're not done with any of this ugliness. Listen, the Imperator says, and sings a basic C-E-G sequence in his normal low voice, this time without using overtones. Repeat after me. I do as he says, singing for the first time since the fateful raising of the Grail. My voice starts out a little faint and hoarse, but I focus and clear my throat and this time sing accurately. Good, you're capable of the basics, the Imperator says with sarcasm. What next? I say coldly. The Imperator nears the monitor with the live feed of the Stadion in the Grail. He beckons me with one hand. Approach and sing, facing the screen. Perform the king's command 3 times as you focus your voice on the ship. Carefully. I take one tentative step toward him, and at once Asen flanks me as we all crowd around the desk and the monitor. I feel Asen's hand slip into mine and his warm fingers squeeze mine briefly before releasing me. And then I face the screen with a feed and whatever embedded audio transmitter, seeing only the same metallic gold surface close up. The display is still zoomed in somewhere along the goblet's neck. Once more I'm aware of the buzzing of metal against the camera on the other end and the deep, constant hum rattling my bones even through this remote transmission. I take a deep breath and visualize the Grail monument in its grandiose entirety, and then continue imagining the rest of it extending deep into the ground. I don't even know what the ship is supposed to look like, its true shape. I can only imagine something like the modern arc ships, and then I sing the King sequence, a perfect C-E-G. My voice comes clean and steady, is transmitted remotely. Even as I complete the 3 notes the first time, already the ancient arc ship responds. Suddenly there's silence as the hum and buzzing cease, while the ancient program halts, recognizing new input. I continue singing as instructed, repeating the sequence 2 more times, and then I look up. The Imperator looks at me, then glances at the sun briefly and nods. Next, he faces the monitor and sings the same CEG sequence that I just finished, also 3 times, while the ship remains silent, listening to input. Then he pauses, raising one finger for quiet, as Asen and I observe, hardly daring to breathe. Finally, the Imperator follows up with a strange extended sequence of notes, which I vaguely recognize as an oral block, but with enhancements. The Imperial oral block sequence has additional notes, repetitions, and complex embellishments. When the last note falls, there's initial silence for at least 3 heartbeats. And then the ship responds. It seems to sonic lurch as we feel a deep subterranean tremor, a sonic wave that resonates across the stadium arena in all directions, like the ever-widening circles from an object cast in water. The vibration is so low that the only sound comes from the shifting of the ground itself. Remarkably, the remote camera and its audio pick up this effect. It's difficult to imagine the sound technology necessary for processing the input with such spatial precision, but somehow it is transmitted to us many miles away across the sprawling city, here in the Imperial Palace, so that we could feel and ride the ghost echo wave. The ghost wave echo, sorry. And then all at once the deep hum returns, except that it continues rising in pitch, turning swiftly into a horrible shriek and rising higher yet, going ultrasonic and disappearing beyond human perception. All of this takes place in a split second, and surely it must be heard and felt far out there in the city. A sonic boom in the neighborhood of the stadium, all around the urban downtown complex, where yesterday the crowds of protesters gathered, and today there's only the usual workday traffic. What must all these people think? Indeed, over the monitor I hear distant flocks of birds rise, flapping all around the neighborhood, fleeing with alarm into the sky. But none of it matters right now, because the Imperator moves back with a satisfied expression on his face. Finally, he says to us, ignoring our tense frowns. The master lock is restored, which means the quantum shield is back in place, and we are safe for the moment. In the next moment, he keys something on the desk to disconnect the live feed, and the monitor goes dark to be replaced by the Imperial Network logo. Time to call new desk chef, Romotat Cassiope says with a grim smile. It's the end of the chapter. What time is that?
11:26.
Okay, do you guys want me to finish up what I have? Because there's some really important, I think I can do a little bit more. Okay, go ahead. So we can,